To start this project, you'll have your vase, like I said before, cleaned, fired, glazed on the inside, and the glaze fired. The product we're going to use today to do our base coating is, we're going to use a Doc Holliday opaque acrylic, and the number for this is 19, and it's a light gray. What I like to use when I'm base coating with acrylics, I like to use a brush that is soft, so again you get your base coat on smooth, you don't have a lot of lines and a lot of ridges. Now I do have this one already base coated, but I'm going to show you that all I do is wet my brush, tap it out a little bit, and then I go to the color and I go across. And I work it back and forth, all different directions. I want to make sure that I have a good, solid coverage. The main reason you want a good, solid coverage is so that when you go to use your other colors over the top, your paint sticks will stick to the color. They're not real crazy. The paint sticks don't particularly like to stick to just plain bisque. I know a lot of people who do that, but my preference is to have some kind of a base coat on your piece. So that's why I like to have an acrylic of some type underneath. It'd be just like if you were doing a decorative painting and using a gesso to prepare your canvas. You want to have something for that paint to grab a hold of. So then after you have 2 good coats of the Doc Holliday gray, light gray on, you rinse out your brush. You're pretty much, for right this minute, you're going to be pretty much done with using water. We're going to take this and move it over here, and what I'm going to show you is that I have the pattern. I already have the pattern applied to this one, but I wanted to show you how I put the pattern on. To put this pattern on, I again used tissue paper. This is one of my favorite ways of doing things, of putting on a pattern. The reason I put patterns onto tissue paper is a lot of times you'll put your pattern on, you'll put your main part of your pattern like an outline on if you want to base coat this in a different color. But you can, and if you've done that, then you can see through the tissue paper and line it back up to make sure that the color and the pattern fits where you've already outlined. So on this particular piece, since it is an acrylic opaque, you can put your pattern, lay your pattern on, and then when you lay your pattern on, you can use a Sharpie marker. So when you lay your pattern on, you're going to come back up, you're going to lay it on here, then you're going to use a Sharpie marker, because this is not a fired product, so if the Sharpie does leave a residue, it's not a big deal, but you're going to trace right over the top of your lines. The Sharpie marker, this tissue, it's going to go right through this tissue paper. The tissue paper does not have any kind of wax finish to it. You want to be sure and get a tissue paper that is pure tissue paper and not any, some of the cheaper brands have a little bit of a wax to one side. You want something that doesn't have any wax involved at all. So you're going to lay your pattern on top of here, and you're just going to draw right over the top like that, and when you pick up your, see, I got a little bit off on that one, but it was just to demonstrate to you that you can do this. And so when you do this piece, you can put your whole pattern on, because we're going to go in, when we get this all done, the way we do this piece is you're going to go in and you're going to fill in the different feathers with different colors. You're going to fill in his body with a different color. So you're going to use a lot of the paint stick colors on this to finish up with your pattern. So now we're ready to apply the pattern, or apply the color. Sometimes if your paint stick doesn't want to seem to stick to your piece, doesn't want to work quite right, you can take your porcelain spray and porcelain spray a fine mist of porcelain spray over the whole piece, and then that gives the paint stick a tooth, and that's what we call it, where it has something for it to grab a hold of. So we have a tooth on here so that the paint stick will grab right on. I have used paint stick for a long time, probably over 25 years, and sometimes I spray and sometimes I don't. If I'm having a bad day and can't get the color to stick to the piece, then I definitely go spray it. On the piece that I have right here, I did not spray it. I just started painting. Once I got my pattern put on, had it on with the marker, I went right to putting on the color. So that's the next step we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to apply the color to the piece. Okay, so to start putting your color out that you're going to use on this cute little turkey, this is the paint stick that I was talking about. If they start to, as they wear down and as you start using them up, you can just pull the paper apart that comes around the edge of the little paint stick, and you push it up just a little bit, and then so you have a little bit of it sticking out, and all you do is scribble it onto this palette paper, which is like putting out color for a color crayon or just coloring. But what you're going to do is I always put out a spot that's just a little bit bigger than an old silver dollar, the big ones that we used to have. So what I'm going to do is use a medium-sized brush. I'm actually going to use a number 4, and I'm going to pick the color up. See how I be sure and get both of these, get this brush nice on both sides. I'm putting the color on both sides. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to very easily brush this color on. Since it's oil base, it goes on really nice and smooth. And all I'm doing is coloring in his face. By using this kind of brush that still has a nice edge on it. Sometimes after you've used these brushes for quite a while, they get kind of fuzzy on the ends, and you can't get that real nice edge and keep it where you want it. Because I don't want this all over him. I just want it on his face. So by having a real nice chisel edge on the brush, I can keep this color pretty much where I want it to go. If you do get outside of the lines, not a big deal. Paint stick will cover each other. 9 times out of 10, whatever color you're going to put next to it, it just picks it up and you just wipe it off your brush. So you can see how easy this is to make sure you're, see how far I went with that one load of the brush? You're going to go all through and do all of his face. Now I'm staying off the eyes because one way I like to finish my pieces at the very end when I'm doing a lot of detail, I will go back and do the acrylic just because I like that opaqueness of the finish that you get when you just use the acrylic color, and you can control it just a little bit more. You can, if you want to, you can take your little detail brush and some of the thinner that you clean your brushes with, you can take that, mix it into here, it turns it right back into a liquid oil paint, and you can put detail back in. It's okay, I like it. Sometimes you have to do a couple of coats to get your color nice and opaque, like when you're outlining some eyes or putting in the pupil of an eye. But I just as soon just go back and use my acrylic, do a couple of little coats of that and be done. So this color that I am using is called Asphaltium. It's one of my favorite brown colors. Asphaltium makes all kinds of neat colors. When you do Indians, if you still do any of the Indian stuff, if you do any kind of Western pieces that you have leather, have saddles, have boots or chaps, though this is a real nice leather color as well. It's great on animals, any of the animals that we do, like the elk or deer. These colors are awesome to work with because they're so easy to shade with. So on the turkey, the Asphaltium goes onto his face and his neck. And if you want it to be darker and you want it to shade a little bit, what you can do is you can get as far as you can go on this as you color it, and then you can take it out and spray it. I always suggest you go outside to spray because that porcelain spray has a lovely fragrance to it. And if you're doing it where you're teaching a class, you want to be sure and go outside because a lot of people are allergic to that smell. So now we have the turkey base coated in. So that is all you're going to use the Asphaltium for. Now, one thing I don't do is I don't wash my brushes till the very end of the day. Because if I make a mistake, or I see somewhere that I missed, or I just want to darken my color a little bit, I can take that brush that I've been using all day long in Asphaltium and go back and touch it up. So what I do is I use a different brush for each color. So since that's what I'm going to do for his, because I want to get these back behind feathers started. They go right along here. We have 3 rows of feathers right here. So what I'm going to do is I went ahead and did the face and the neck because it's setting in there so I have a lot of things to put around it, but this way I also can keep it straight on my pattern as to where his neck and his face are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and actually I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a little color right in here on the inside of his hat. That color would be the charcoal. And this is a brand new stick, so I had showed you how to get that sealer off of there. So see, now I have started that stick. Now, since this is a little bitty spot in here, I'm going to pick up this charcoal. Again, load your brush very well. Got a little number 2 brush. And I'm just going to go in here and fill in the edge of his hat. This would be the inside of his hat. So I'm just filling in. So this first little bit that we're doing here is mainly just base coating in and getting your color started as to where you want it and what you want, where you want it to be, so that you know that's what the pattern is. And you always want to do things that are back behind or back inside of things. Then you work your way out, because they're the shadow of things. You're going to put things on top. It's almost like putting on your clothes. Okay, so as I was saying, I put the gray back here. I went in and put the charcoal gray into his little hat. So he has his face and his neck on. He has a little back behind of his little inside of his hat. So now we also, as a process of being able to show you quickly how this goes on, I have got one side ready over here that we'll be able to go to shade to here in just a minute. But I want to show you how to apply where these feathers belong. Now this little rim right here is going to be his hat. And I'm going to put that on after I get this back feather right here done. So this first row of feathers, or what I consider the first row of feathers, I am going to do the turquoise. And it is an iridescent color. The little gray that went inside the hat was an iridescent. Now the turquoise is an iridescent. Again, use a brush that fits the size that you're comfortable with, that you like to use. Some people use little tiny brushes. I usually try to use just a little bit bigger brush than some people do, because I like to be able to keep enough color on my brush. And as you notice, as you put this color on, because we've used the Sharpie marker, you can see the detail of this comes through. Now when we're all through, we're going to do a little detailing to this, but it's just going to make it be more crisp and sharp. So we're going to use some acrylic color over the top when we're done to bring that detail out. But by using the Sharpie marker, being on acrylic, being with paint stick, which is a lot of them are translucent, so you can see right through them, then you know right where your color is going to go and where your detail is going to go. So this is base coating. And see, I'm not being really careful. I'm just sliding from one feather to the next, and I'm going right over my black. And that's not a big deal, because I can see where I'm headed. So once you get this row of feathers on, then, and I used a clean brush for the turquoise. So I'm keeping all my brushes that I've used so far, because I want to be able to come back and touch up if I need to. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to shade the next color over the top of that area. The reason I'm going to go ahead and shade right over the top is this is still a little bit wet. So applying the shading of this color over the top of the base coat, it's going to make it blend together really nice. So you're going to start up next to the feather that's in front of it. And we're leaving those feathers alone up there because they're the little wing section. And I just like to work from, a lot of times you would work from your back to your middle to your front, because farthest back, next, farthest out. But here's the trick with paint sticks. You lay your hand in it and you're going to have it all over you, all over the piece, all over everywhere. You don't want that. So see what I've done? I've laid the purple, or actually it's called dark sapphire. I've laid the dark sapphire over the top of the turquoise. Now I'm going to go back and take that turquoise brush, and I've got turquoise in my brush. I'm going to bring it from the tip of the feather, and I'm real easily going to blend that back in. And I can also take this turquoise brush, wipe it out on a nice paper towel, pull it, and soften it. See how nice that softens up? It's an oil paint, so it blends together very nicely. So I'm going to go back to my dark sapphire brush, and I'm going to pull in some more color, pull it around that little hat, take my turquoise brush, pick up a little color, start at the outer edge, and pull back. So see, and I'm just barely up on the edge of that brush, softening that color. So now I have some blending and some shading going on my feathers. Now if you want this color to be darker, after you get all your other colors on and you've painted to the point where you really can't paint much more, you can spray it, and once you've sprayed it, then you can come back in and put in some more of the sapphire on the top and just have it a little darker. I'm going to try to show you how that works right now without taking time to spray. Pretend like this has had a good spray of porcelain spray on. Then you're going to come in here and you're going to real easy pull. I'm doing real soft, very light brush, barely touching it, and pull it. And see that darkened that color right up. So you can get some nice rich color on that piece. So for the turquoise, now there's another one down here. You have a couple more down here that would be the turquoise. So here's all the turquoise basted in. Here it is starting to be shaded. So now I'm going to show you with the gray brush. The gray brush that I used inside his hat is a little bit small. So I'm going to go to a little bit bigger brush and I'm going to pick up the gray. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to fill this in. Fill in his little gray feathers. And the gray gets shaded with jade. I know the jade and the turquoise look a lot alike, but when you put them over the top of other colors, there's definitely a difference. So there is a charcoal feather. I'm trying to get this done real quick so you can see. Like I said, I don't have to be real careful about it because this whole row of feathers right here is going to be the charcoal. Now, keep the charcoal brush over the top. I'm going to take the jade. Pick it up good in your brush, get all that hair of that brush, get it nice and coated, and then I'm going to start up against his little hat, and I'm going to pull it out like this. See, look at that feather come to life. Has a nice little sparkle of jade in there, so it makes him a real fancy little turkey. Again, if I get it up here and I don't like it, if it gets too squared off and it doesn't look too feathered out, see this color for the hat, same color for the feather, so I can go on either spot there. And see, it's still open. This paint will stay open on your palette for probably a couple hours. After a little while, if you're working in a real hot room and you've been doing this all day long, it gets dry, and then every once in a while you have to put fresh paint out. But I'm going to take it from up here at the back of the feather, and I'm going to pull it down. And just barely, when I get down to getting into the jade, I just real easily back off on my pressure of my brush and very easily just blend it together. Again, if we went out and sprayed, we can put out just a little bit more of the jade. Put a little bit more of the jade out, pick it up with the brush, and you can come in here and pull it. And see, this time I'm putting a little bit more pressure on, add a little bit more color on there. And this time when I go to blend it back, I'm just, again, very easily blending it back. And then that's a lot of color on there. That's really nice. So, again, 2 more brushes. We're going to hang on to those. We might need them later. We're going to do the back row of feathers. And the back row of feathers is actually the iridescent brown shaded with the leaf green. So, again, we're going to use a big brush because these are even bigger feathers yet, farther back. You're going to pick up your color. You're going to put your color in on your feather. Now, when I was doing this earlier on this other little guy over here, when I was getting him ready to do for this video, the brown was having a little bit of an issue, but I was working in a really warm room, so I couldn't get it to do it. I had to put the brown on, and put it on nice and smooth. I had to put the brown on, and then I had to give it a shot of spray because it didn't want to work real well. And I don't know for sure if that might have been because it was just a little bit warm, and the paint the brown is just made a little bit different with the way they put the oil into it, and brown in general in all color lines is a little bit different. So I'm going to try right now to put the green in, and if it doesn't want to stick very well, I'm going to put, now it's sticking much better today. And I'm just going to lay that in there. Do the same thing again. You're going to shade that feather. Get a little bit of sparkle going on, a little bit different color, because he's an awful fancy turkey. So then we're going to take the brown, and we're going to come back here, and we'll just blend it down, pull it down. And then if I blend just a little bit too far, go back, pick up the green. That's why I don't ever wash my brush out. And see, I just blend that right together. So that, like I said, that would be your tail feathers. Now, if you want to deepen the color, you definitely spray it. And what I would do, if I was going to do this and deepen those colors, after I sprayed it, I would come back in and just work from the edges and put, like this one, put the dark sapphire back over, put a little jade back over. I would just deepen my shading color, not so much deepen the background color. And that will make it really pop out, and it'll have nice coloring. So, the next thing we need to do to finish this little guy is, since it's in a background situation, like I said, you always want to do, most of the time you want to do your back things first, and you have a lighter color coming on top of a darker color. We're going to finish up his hat. We're going to put the rest of his little hat in there. And because I didn't want to get too crazy and get a whole bunch of colors, which I can very easily do. I love to do colors, especially when I do paint sticks, where they're so easy to work with. You're going to fill your brush, the black, and you're going to paint right up to your hat band. And so to make some of the color pop out of his tail feathers, and again, not have too many sticks that you have to do one project, I took the dark sapphire and I put it into his hat band. And that was just a real fun way of making his hat band coordinate with his tail feathers. And what you want to do is you want to pull this from all different directions. You want to get it up close to the line, pull it, smooth it, and sometimes black can be a little streaked just because you want to be more opaque. I put a good coat on there. I have a little bit of a streak there, so I let it set, and then after I finish the rest of his hat, I take it out and spray it. And as soon as that spray is through drying, you can go and color right over the top of it. But you do want to let that spray dry, because that's what's going to set that oil. When you do paint sticks on other things like figurines, when I'm doing them, I have to kind of watch and let it dry just a little bit longer, because I have a lot of heat in my hands, and if I don't let it set and dry just a little bit, it kind of makes my porcelain spray get a little sticky. So when I spray, I could have 2 or 3 projects going, so I can spray and let them set a while before I go back to it and let that dry, the spray dry really good. Okay, so that brought his little hat on around. And like I said, we'll just let it set a little bit, and then I would spray it, and then we'll put the color back on over the top, just give it another coat, so it will be as dark as the rest of his hat. So to finish off his hat band, I can go back to that little brush that I had the sapphire on, pick up some sapphire, and I need to fill in this because this little hat band is going through that buckle. So see, in some colors, they just, the way they blend, the way the color works, the way the color is made, they just go on so nice that you only need to do 1 coat. So on this little guy, we did his hat band and the part of his bow tie. That's what this is down here, is his bow tie. So the back part of the part of his tie that goes around his neck, we filled it all in with sapphire. So for the main part of his bow, I'm going to get the turquoise back out. So I was starting to run low. This turquoise brush now is just a little bit big, so I would need to use a smaller brush. In fact, I'm going to go back down to a number 2. I'm going to pick up color. I'm going to fill in his bow tie. Oops, got in the jade. See, but see, you make a little mistake getting the wrong color. Those colors are close enough. You just go and pick up more color, and it'll just blend together. And you have the jade already in there, so that wasn't really a big boo-boo. Now, when I'm trying to paint white and I get in the black, yeah, that can be kind of a problem. And if you get somewhere, when I was doing the first hat that I did, I wasn't paying attention, and I ended up going over my hat band just a little bit. The thinner, or the brush cleaner that I'm going to show you as to how to clean your brushes, you can just take a clean brush, get it into the thinner, dab the thinner out on a paper towel, and have that clean brush with thinner in it, and you can go in and just pull it out like this. You just wipe it back so that it picks up that color. Because if you're trying to do a lighter color, or you've made a mistake and got a dark color on there, you don't want to do that. You really need to clean it out before you continue on, because it would just take way too many coats of color to cover up your boo-boo. So now that we have his bow tie in here, then you're going to go pick up that little sapphire brush again, and then you can get a little bit of paint on there, and then you could do a little bit of shading. Add little creases to his, and the paint is still open, so see, I can just add some little highlights of his necktie part for shading into this. See, just makes a real cute little, and if you don't like it, if you get it too heavy, you want that line to be a little narrow, take your brush, put it in, and use your turquoise brush, have color on it, and cut, as I call it, cut the color back. Cut it back so it's a little narrower. Okay? So that is his hat, his bow tie, his hat band, his face and neck. We also used the asphaltium down here, so it looked like he had a little bit of his chest down here. We used the black on his little vest. We used the regular white. We have titanium white. That is his collar. So then the next set of feathers that we haven't done yet, we might not want to do this collar just yet. We'll get the black onto his vest, and then we're going to do these feathers that we have over here like this in brown, and do the shading, and then put your white over the top. Because the white doesn't have any shading, you can just put the white over the top and have him all base coated in. When you do his little beak, the little beak is, sometimes you have to hang on to your palette when you have a new stick. See, I got to break off that color. Put a little bit, it's called yellow ochre. It's kind of a funny little color, but it does a lot of good. It has a lot of good places you can use it when you need to just shade something. His beak starts out with the yellow ochre, but to shade it, we're going to put orange over the top. So we're going to have it all filled in, and then when you want to shade over the top, then we're just going to take, so you've got it all shaded in, then I'm going to take some orange. I'm going to take some orange, put the orange out, Then I'm going to take just a little bit bigger brush again, a little bit bigger. I'm going to take a little bit bigger brush, load it up, but then I'm going to go real soft right over the top of that yellow ochre and shade that. Now today the yellow ochre doesn't want to be shaded very good. It's a little warm, but see, I'm getting some of that color off. I don't want it to be a bright flame orange. If I wanted it to be a bright flame orange, I'd have just used Asia orange right over the top. Now I would spray that and then maybe come back and highlight it just a little bit after it's the spray dried. So then the only part that you have left is the little wattle here. After you go, you're going to do your back brown feathers, you're going to shade them, you're going to do your white, and then you're going to do Tampate red to paint in the wattle. And that would be all the base coating and shading on this piece. So you have all those colors that makes this turkey start coming to life. So now we're to the part, and then when we've got everything shaded the way we like, to just fill in the little buckle for his hatband, we use copper. So that would be all of the base coating. Now you can see that we have white in the eyes of the turkey. That's just done with white acrylic. So they're drying. I stopped during part of my base coating time and put the white acrylic in there so that they would be drying, because that takes that white acrylic a little while to dry, since it's over the top of a base coat. There's already a coat underneath. So now, once you get all your colors in, get all your shading on, then we're about ready to start finishing our detail. Okay, so now here is our little turkey all ready to be detailed. I put in a lot of the detail already because I didn't think you wanted to sit here and watch me do all of this little detail. But what I'm using today to do the detail is I'm using Doc Holliday's black acrylic. I've used Doc Holliday's white acrylic. That's what I told earlier that were in the eyes, and also the highlight of the eyes. And then for the gold buttons, I just have a little bit of a bright liquid gold that I just made little buttons on the front of his jacket with. So what you want to do is have yourself a really nice little detail brush. And the little detail brush that I'm using today is a Zem brush. These are fairly new on the market. And this one is a really nice number 10 Taklon liner. And you can get a very, very fine point. And I have the brush wet, take most of the water out, dab a little bit of the water out, then take it to your black color, run your brush through it, run your brush nice and through, and get a nice point, and then come in here and just put in the fine little details. I'm just putting in the little lines that divide the tail feathers, that give him a little roundness on his tail feathers. I take it and go along the little jacket. I come along the little jacket like this to straighten up that edge. You've put the nice edge in there with your paint sticks and a nice chisel edge with your square brushes, but sometimes it's just nice to have a real nice crisp little line at the edge. So then you're going to come in here and you're going to go around your little feather here, which is part of his wing that's hanging over his little jacket. So you can get, and then go along here and just give him a nice outline that helps straighten out his edges. Now on this one, you notice that I have part of the background. I decided I wanted to put a black background around him because so much of my outlining is the black. I just wanted to have a nice crisp edge of black around here. So I've only done part of this one because I'm going to do probably another design on the other side. So I left the gray on the back side, but I've gone ahead and done this so I can do my detail and clean up the edges around my paint sticks and not have to worry about being careful when I come along and try to put that background color up to the edge. So I'm just doing the little outlines around him. Then I do the little outline around his eye. I put his little eyeball in. I gave him little eyelashes. When you're painting with your paint sticks and you put the wattle part in on his face, you can take your red and dab him on a little bit of red cheeks. That was back when we were doing the paint sticks. Then after you spray him so it sets the color good, you can come in and put his little smile so it comes right up over the and meets that red, so you have nice little cheeks. I went in and I put the black around the buckle so that you have a nice sharp edge on the buckle and there's no so this one gives you nice edges and you don't have wiggly lines. I'm pretty good at wiggling lines. This just crisps up the pattern. Okay, so the little Zim brushes, they come in a really nice package of 5. They're a real nice little detail, and the brush, there's 5 little detail brushes, so you can go down and do those little teeny tiny eyelashes that you'd like to do. These are just really awesome little brushes. I really have enjoyed using them. So now the other part to him, after you have all your detail in, and you've noticed I've only done the little line between the feathers. I haven't gone around and edged the edge. And if you'll notice, the edge over here, I have started finishing it. What I'm going to use to finish these edges and to put this little line in his tail feathers is I'm going to use a product called Mud. And now I'm going to show you how to use that part of it. You use it through a cake decorating tip, and then you can use a brush with it and pull it and get fine little lines. So this is a real fun thing, a fun product to add dimension to your piece. So now we will show you how to do that. Okay, to use Mud, Mud is a product that can be fired or not. It does not have to be fired. It's a product that when you do fire it, you fire it to a low firing, like an 016, where it's like a 1480 firing, and then that makes it a permanent onto like glaze or an overglaze. You're using it like to do the kind of firing you're doing is along the line of an overglaze firing. But you can also use it on things that are not going to be fired, because when it sets up as hard as mud. I mean, it's hard as rock. It's just very, very hard. Hard to wash off as well. So once you get it on there, if you don't like what you want, you gotta get it off right away because it will set up. And when you use it, the product was designed to be used through a cake decorator tip. So what I have found is I found some bottles that I like to use for some of my techniques. So some of the techniques that we do, we also put it in a cake decorating bag. But for this project right here, I have it in a bottle, so it's very easy to use. Sometimes it wants to set up in the end of the tip a little bit, especially if you've had it open for a little while. You want to definitely be sure to have a pin in the end of the tip, the cake decorating tip, when you're not using it, and that keeps the air from getting in around it. So when you're ready to use it, you clean it out really good, and you take it and you run it out onto a paper towel and make sure that it's going. So what I'm going to show you how to do is do some detail around here. what you do is you lay your tip onto the area you're going to do. You lay it on and you put out just a little bit. When I'm not using it, I have it in the other hand with my finger over the end. Then I have a really nice little cat's tongue brush that I have damp, and then I take it and I pull it. I'm just pulling a little tiny wisp to outline the top of that tail. Get the top of that tail feather. So then I'm just barely pulling it down so there's a little bit of wisp and a little bit of detail to the top of that tail feather. So now I'm going to go along with the one next to it. I'm going to pull it back towards me so I have more control. I pull it out to the edge of the feather. I stop where that feather divides to the next one. I'm taking my brush and I'm pulling it real easy. I'm up on the tip of the toes of that brush and I'm pulling it. And I'm pulling it down and running out of product. So it comes around and gives the tail feathers, the tops of those tail feathers, a little bit of detail. And what I did, there I go, got along the edge. I'm moving along fairly quickly with it so I don't have a real heavy line that's going to produce there. Dampen the brush, tap it out, and pull, and have a little wisp coming down, and I run out of color when I get to the next tail feather division. So what I did is I did it along the tops of the purple and turquoise. I did along the charcoal and the jade. Now on the very outline of that one, I just had it in to me that I needed a little bit to brighten it up. So mud comes in black and in white. So I also have the white, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go along the top edge of the feather, and I'm not putting it out very heavy there because I don't want this to be really shocking and just make it look right at only that little detail. So I have a very fine line, wash the brush out, and pull it. See, I'm pulling, and I'm not pulling it down very far because I want that back tail feather to show up really nice. And see, I just run it out of color. So this gives you that little feathery edge that turkey tails kind of have. Go along the edge of that with a little outline. Have your brush a little damp and just pull it. Pull it down and let it run out of color. You're just grabbing a little bit of color of that mud on the very tip of that brush and pulling it just a little bit, because we want this little tail feather to have a little bit of dimension. So the only place that I used the mud on this particular project was on the tail feathers. Then, when the edges of your tail feathers have dried a little bit, I went back to the black mud, because you need to have just a little bit of some kind of detail into the middle of that feather. Well, I thought it needed some anyway. And I have a little bit of a chunk of something on there. You want to keep the tip of your mud cleaned off so you don't have little crumblies come on. Okay, so to add some little detail to the little feathers, we're going to start at the feather below it and pull a little bit towards the middle of your feather and start and pull and run out of product. Pull and run out of product. So you have a little vein in the tail feather. I'm going to do that on all these back feathers. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to come along, do your top edge, pull the wispies down. I don't know of any other name to call that besides wispies. It just seems to fit this little technique that we have to do right here. And then you're going to come back, and I know you notice I probably just made a boo-boo and have my finger over it so it gets dried out. Then you're going to take and pull a little vein in each tail feather. So what you're going to do is you're going to start at the middle of your feather, curve it just a little bit, and come towards the top. So that all of your tail feathers will look, and I even did on the tail feathers that have the white edge, I did the black vein in that too, because I just didn't think a white vein in the middle of that dark tail feather would look very good. So I wanted to be sure and have the same type of vein. And see, I'm having to work this just a little bit because I boo-booed, didn't have my finger over it, but I just take my pin and kind of ream it around. There it goes. So I'm going to take it and pull it next to that and pull it up. And see, I just stopped short. I only got about 3/4 of the way up on those tail feathers. And there's a little detail in his tail feathers. So when you get mud, the mud comes in 4-ounce jars, and after you get your mud, I always put it into these bottles, and then these little bottles have a plastic cap that you can put on at the end of the day. Wash the top and the bottom of wash this tip and this cap out really good, because if you're going to let that set for very long, it's going to set up really hard, and it takes a lot of really hot water to get that out of there. So at the end of the day, there's a little cap that'll go on this bottle. You can put the little cap on, take all this off, this all comes undone, and you can wash it really good, scrub it out really good, and then it'll be ready, and let it dry, and then it'll be ready for the next time you want to use it. So on this piece, we have used a couple, 3 different products. So this is a really fun holiday project for your turkey decorations. Like I said, too, the other thing you could do, instead of using a real fine brush, you could try to use a very fine Sharpie marker that would work on this. What I was having trouble is I was trying to do that on this piece, and what I was having trouble with on this piece is because of the oil paint, it wants to slide off. So that's why it would be better to go back in with your detail brush and use your black acrylic and thin down your acrylic and put your little detail in between your lines and put your face on. So this is my Tom T. Gobbler turkey for Thanksgiving. And if you have any questions about product or brushes or the things that I've used, you can contact me through the EA classes. And I hope that you have a great Thanksgiving and enjoy doing this fun little project. Thank you.